Ever wondered, could the legacy you leave be drastically reduced by tax? Let's be honest. Does the thought of 40% of your hard-earned money just disappearing in taxes sit well with you? Imagine nearly half of everything you've worked for, meant for your loved ones, could just vanish. And with the big changes on inheritance tax and rules kicking in, especially as it kicked in from April 2025, this isn't just far off. It's knocking right at our door.
Right.
The clock is really ticking, so getting grips with what's changing now is essential. You don't want your family's future hit by a tax bill that, if you know the ropes, you could legally and significantly cut down. Hello, I'm Betty Johnson and welcome to B3 Inspire. And today we are joined by our financial expert, Edem, who is going to talk all about inheritance tax and the changes, so you can plan carefully and have the benefit of leaving your hard-earned wealth to the people that you love most. Let's dig in. Welcome back.
Thank you. And yes, another great significant topic for us to cover, especially if you've got any form of assets in the UK. And knowing very well that, hey, and we talked about in the previous session, that one day we will all pass on. And then the final thought was that when we pass on, we must depart well. This is one of the sort of the important topics and ways that we can use to put our estate right before we pass on. So yeah, all encompassing, a great topic to look at to see how best we can position ourselves for the future.
First things first.
Yeah. What
exactly is inheritance tax? And what are our listeners really up against?
Good question. So, inheritance tax, as the name goes again, is tax on your inheritance, the things that you pass on. So, in the UK, it's interesting. You are taxed about 4 times. You are taxed.
Ouch.
You are taxed when you work and you earn.
Yes.
You are taxed when you save.
Yes.
You are taxed when you purchase and you buy things.
Yes.
And then you are taxed when you die. Pretty much. Because that is inheritance tax. When you pass away, anything that you pass on onto your loved ones, the tax that applies on the anything over and above a certain threshold, in this case is the hefty 40% on the inheritance. Is what inheritance tax is. So at the moment there is what we call the new rate band. That's one of the threshold. So any asset over 325,000, the value of the assets over 325,000, anything above that, you are taxed 40%.
Okay.
If you do have property as well, then it means that you are eligible for an extra allowance, which is called the residence new rate band. So the first allowance that I mentioned is called the new rate band. The second one is called the residence new rate band, which is 175,000. So together, potentially you have $500,000 worth of allowance that you can use. This is per person.
Okay.
So if you're a couple or several partners, it means that if you combine your assets, you can combine your allowance to utilize. In this case, would be £1 million worth of allowance before any inheritance tax applies to your estate or to your assets or the things that you own.
Amazing. Not so much about the tax, but the contents knowledge. Hey, Edem. So, why is 2025 very critical when it comes to inheritance tax? What are the new rules and what's changed?
Yeah, so from April, which is from the start of the new year, which is the 6th of April 2025.
Yes.
It means that what we call the IHT. IHT means inheritance tax in the UK becomes what we call residence based rather than based on your domicile. Domicile means that the place where your parents come from, more of your father come from, you're born, that's where you take your domiciliary from. Okay, so from 26th of April 2025, it becomes residence based rather than domiciliary based. That basically means that anyone, any resident in the UK for the past 10 out of the 20 years,
yes,
it means that you not just tax on your UK assets, you are taxed on your worldwide assets.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's becoming quite a thing at the moment. I mean, the law is constantly evolving. The current government finding means and ways to be able to extract as much money from individuals as much as possible because of the manifesto. Okay, I won't go to politics. Let's talk about finance. Yeah, so that becomes applicable, and again, if you leave the UK after meeting that 10-year sort of test, as well, it means that the IHT will then follow you abroad.
Oh wow!
So yeah, which means that it doesn't just apply because I've lived in the UK, become residency. But if you meet a 10-year rule, if you go abroad, it's also become applicable. It doesn't mean that you leave it behind, and because I'm not a UK resident anymore, it means that it won't apply because I become a resident elsewhere. But as long as you've met the 10 out of the 20-year residency rule, it means that the tax would apply. You still pay the 40% on your worldwide assets. So yeah, it's quite interesting. The other thing as well is that the IHT, inheritance tax new rate ban, has become frozen until 2030.
That's really good to know that these changes that are in place this year. I'm just wondering, what tools can people use if they have to try and be tax efficient and reduce their estate? Legally.
Legally. Yes, that's a good question. I think one of the good things about the UK system is that they put the challenges when it comes to your estate or taxation in place, but at the same time they also make certain tools and strategies available to utilize within the system to help you to navigate any kind of tax liability that may be due. So the chief of it is in the form of gifting. So there is what we call the 7-year rule and the 2-year rule.
Okay.
So the 7-year rule basically means that it's what we call the potentially exempt transfer. Potentially exempt transfer means that if you gift any property or any asset to your beneficiary, as long as you survive 7 years, that asset becomes inheritance tax exempt.
Okay.
Right. So as long as
do it now, basically. Well, who knows?
As early as you can, as early as you are certain of who should inherit your assets, and once it's gifted it, you can't take it back to benefit from it.
Okay.
So you gift it, 7 years pass, and nothing happens to you. It means that that asset, it doesn't form part of your estate and sits outside it for inheritance tax purposes. The same, then we've got the 2-year rule as well, whereby again, if you mainly for cash, that's work more for cash than for any sort of illiquid asset. If you put that asset, or if you give that asset into to anyone, as long as, or if you put it in a particular vehicle, what we call the business property reliefs, it means that as long as you survive 2 years, that money or that asset that you've put into the business property relief will then sit outside of your estate.
Okay.
Now, when you do that, the 2-year rule, or the asset that qualifies to the business property relief, they tend to be much more high risk vehicles to utilize. So anything that you put into the business property relief, those ones is quote unquote it could generate you returns, but if it doesn't generate any returns because it's high risk, and you could possibly lose some of the value of the money that you put in there.
So that's the first one.
That's the first one on the gifting. That's right. Then there's also the option to be able to transfer the asset or transfer the asset to your spouse, which is what we call the spousal exemption. So if you transfer your asset to your spouse, it means that the property becomes inheritance tax exempt. So also becomes quite beneficial as well. And then there's the third aspect about trust as well. Yeah, so quite an important tool, as we spoke about in the previous episode. So if you anything that you put in a trust, again, as long as it's within the allowances, the new rate band, the residence new rate band, as long as it's within that, it does become the inheritance tax exempt as well. Either for yourself, the 500,000 between yourself and your spouse or your partner, civil partner. Again, we've got $1 million to be able to utilize within the trust to ensure that it does sit outside of your estate and doesn't become inheritance taxable. Now, there's also the other strategy whereby you can also gift any asset or gift any money to charity.
Okay.
If you gift to charity, again, it also becomes inheritance tax exempt as well, which you can utilize.
Is there a period on it?
No, not necessarily. So when you do gift it out, what tends to happen is that the whole of it becomes inheritance tax free.
I see why the rich do donate.
So think about they call them the philanthropist.
That's
why
right.
they give money to anyone. Yeah, it does becomes exempt, so they can actually utilize it as much as possible. Then again, if you gift it to any national party or to any sort of national heritage, like the library. It does also become
about library. Yes, okay.
It also becomes the inheritance tax free as well.
Fantastic.
And then the other aspect of the tool that you can use, but now up until 2027, if anything is in a pension, then it also does sit outside of your estate. We trust in that the laws will change, will come up with something, because it's always has been that way, and it's quite helpful for people who have worked hard for their money to be able to enjoy their retirement.
Yeah.
And now it's been everything fallbacks in the state to become taxable, but hopefully something will come up. But other than that, in the net from 2027, if it's if it's pension and it falls into the estate, and when it does fall into the estate from 27, it becomes taxable. These are the main tools that you can utilize really in order to be able to plan your inheritance tax. But with that being said as well, there are also other sort of giftings that you can utilize, just to say slightly. For example, if you make any gifting of £3,000 a year, unlimited for as long as possible, all of that 3,000 also becomes exempt from inheritance tax.
Doesn't matter who it goes to.
Well, normally with the 3,000 it doesn't matter, but then if you have, there's also the £250 of the £250 gifted or to for wedding purposes. If you then gift that money to anyone who's doing the wedding, and normally not to anyone really, it's to your children and also to grandchildren. If you give that money to them, also becomes inheritance tax free. So you can utilize these as much as possible to your advantage. just to reduce your tax liability for inheritance tax, just to ensure that things sits outside of the state, or the burden of tax is lessened for what you own and also what you've also have worked hard for.
Excellent.
30, the inheritance tax new rate band has become frozen, so it doesn't really change really. So very important to note. So anyone that has got anything to utilize, now is the best time to sort of plan it and plan as much as possible. And the third one as well is that from 2027,
okay,
it means that if you have, well, after 2027, between now and 2027, any okay, let me put it this way so that it make more sense. Now you're probably aware that when you have your pension, right, your pension sits outside of your estate, so it doesn't become inheritance taxable.
Okay.
But from 2027 April, it means that your pension falls into your estate. If you do pass away, it doesn't matter what kind of pension it is, it falls into your estate. And so your inheritance, your eligibility, quote unquote, to pay inheritance tax becomes more likely, because there's few people that have got quite a heavy pension pot. And with the allowances where it is at the moment, hopefully they basically have a bit of laws change here and there, and or maybe increase the they do something about the new rate bands and the other allowance or relief that may be possible. Although it's frozen, things can change, but until then, that is what would happen from 2027. And so make the most as much as you can with your pension. At the moment, I've seen clients as utilize as much of their pension as possible, utilize other sort of tools in order to be able to deplete cash they do have it, so that anything that they have will means that it will reduce their burden of taxation going forward. So these are sort of the main things that will be happening going forward. Something to bear in mind to know how to position yourself.
Insightful. I've got a question when it comes to the pension. When you say utilize your pension, what do you, can you break it right down? What can I do, or what can our listeners, what could we do to ensure that, because that's huge, your pension going into your estate and being taxed, it's massive. Is there anything that you can legally do to make you tax efficient?
Well, so at the moment, unless you've reached the legal pensionable age, which is the age of 55.
Okay.
But again, in 2027, it's basic. 2028, it's going up from 55 to 57.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. So unless you've reached that pensionable age, I'm afraid unless we're getting closer and then the law changes, it means that you're not able to draw down your pension. Utilizing your pension means that drawing it down. It means that taking the income from it, whether lump sum or maybe as an ongoing income, just so that the value of the pension will reduce or come down as much as possible, in order to be able to avoid this inheritance as much as possible. I mean, so if the pension is huge, maybe that might be your first point of call, and before you utilize sort of other assets within the estate.
Thank you for sharing those strategies of what we could do to reduce that inheritance tax. What do you think? What should our listeners do next?
So the next step is really to review your estate, really plan. You can never go wrong planning, but then if you don't plan, you know what can happen.
You plan to fail.
The best thing you can do now is just to plan as much as possible. I say the knowledge that you are receiving here, it doesn't stop here. There is everything we shared here is quite comprehensive, but if you want more, there is more information out there to read and make sure regurgitate and you understand. And again, if everyone's circumstance is different, Okay, so make sure you seek the advice of a professional estate planner, or a financial advisor like myself, just to ensure that something is tailored according to your circumstances, and you live in no stone unturned. Because again, you want to make sure that you're departing right for all the hard work that you've put in whilst you are alive. Rules are changing. Nothing is static. We didn't think that the rule now that we are gonna happen about pension, about the inheritance tax being frozen, or from the materiality to residency-based rules, or they're changing, evolving all the time. So make sure you're reviewing your estate, you're reviewing circumstances, that it's everything that you have is within the rules, within the laws, and anything that you can take advantage of. Make sure you can take advantage of it as much as you can, so that you don't find yourself wanting. All of this, there's the legal framework that comes with it. There's also the regulatory framework that comes with it. All of this, you can really quite circumvent all of this quite nicely in the right manner, again, by seeking the proper advice if you feel that you don't have what it takes to be able to put something well in place by yourself. Excellent advice.
And if you would like to have that expert advice on you reviewing your estate, Edem's details are below this video. I would like you to look it up, contact Edem and the team. They will be able to help you. If you have found this video really helpful, I want to remind you to subscribe to B3 Inspire. Share this video with your loved ones, because everyone needs to hear this, because this affects everyone. As long as you live in the UK, you are residents of the UK, inheritance tax is inevitable. It's going to happen. Share it, and let's be very smart and efficient within the legal framework. Right, on our next episode on this financial series is episode 11, and we are talking all about property development and home ownership. The do's and don'ts. There's so many arguments out there whether to buy your own residential home or to rent, and we will be looking right into this. You don't want to miss this video. Thank you for watching B3 Inspire, and until next time, build your foundation, believe in your potential, and become unstoppable. See you in the next video.
See you.